D23 ended last week, but during that event and in the days following, Bob Chapek has been talking a lot. Notably, he talked about Disney Plus and its relationship with Disney parks. And he talked about the complaints Disneyland superfans have had about how the parks are being run. And we're going to talk about both of those things next on Fresh Baked. Hi guys, David here with Fresh Baked. You know, watching the days after D23, I've been hit with a feeling that the Disney PR department has told Bob Chapek, you need to get out there and you need to start talking. And talk he has, notably 2 interviews that he did with The Hollywood Reporter and with Deadline. We'll start with The Hollywood Reporter, which was kind of a wide-ranging interview, but at one point, the reporter did zone in on Disneyland, the Disney parks, and the complaints that guests have had about them. How much can you keep raising prices, and does ill will from them create a problem for the brand? A seemingly simple question, but a great one nonetheless. One that we're going to hopefully answer ourselves in a little bit, but here's what Bob had to say. He said that Disney loves their superfans, which he essentially defined himself as annual pass holders, that they love their annual pass holders, which, by the way, something else that he said in that same comment is that he described APs as using the parks as their personal playground, which to me, that sounded kind of like a nasty thing to say, but at the same time, he's not wrong either. Anyway, he went on to say that there needs to be room in the park, not just for the superfans, but also for the family from Colorado who's coming in who only visit maybe once every 4 years. Stating further that in the before times, the parks were too full and that Colorado family couldn't get in. Now, there's more than a little bit to unpack here, but we'll start with the idea that guests couldn't get into the park for some reason. In the before times, that actual process where Disney would close the gates and not let anybody in, that happened maybe 2 or 3 times a year, if that even. Not to say the parks weren't full, they were darn full, but to get to that actual point was pretty rare. But disregarding that, the idea that the Colorado family that couldn't get in is it's kind of hilarious. The Colorado family, they're already in the park. Anytime it got to the point where Disney had to close the gates, that's something that doesn't happen early in the morning. It takes a while for Disney to reach that kind of capacity where they say, that's enough, you can't come in. We're talking late afternoon. The Colorado family, they're not there at 4 o'clock. They're not getting there at 4. They're getting there at rope drop or in the morning. They're already in the park. So if anything, it's the late arrivers, the annual pass holders who are being denied entrance on those rare occasions. Now, don't let it be thought that this is just going to be a video about me defending annual pass holders, railing on Chapek, and that I'm not considerate of out-of-town guests. I definitely am. I'm saying only that he's using a make-believe scenario in order to give validation to their decision to use the reservation system, a scenario that is not logical. It doesn't exist, as far as I can tell. There's a little bit more in this comment. Chapek also said the annual pass as a value was so great that people were literally coming all the time, and the accessibility of the park was unlimited to them. Oh, now on this, he is definitely not wrong. Okay, he is absolutely right on that point. I've been saying this for years. We, as annual pass holders, have been super spoiled for a long time. They're such a good value that it incentivizes us to go more often. Going to Disneyland has replaced, for a lot of us, going to the movies or going to a sporting event. It's cheaper to go to Disneyland for annual pass holders on the regular basis, on average, than it is to do those things, to go to a movie or to go to a sporting event. In fact, it's so true. That's the reason why I've been so shocked that Disney hasn't raised the prices on annual passes, both when Magic Keys first came out and then when they brought them back out again a month ago. I was shocked that they didn't raise the prices. So even today, even with everything that's been happening recently, I still firmly believe, that Magic Keys are a tremendous value. And it's on that topic that I do feel like that some of us got a little spoiled. We got so used to the exceptional value that it became the norm. It became the expectation. So when they started to take some of that value back, we took it personal a little bit, right? Which brings to mind a question that I've been asking myself recently, and I put out there in videos and on live streams a couple times. Are we, as guests of Disneyland, entitled to go? Is it necessary that we go to Disneyland 50 times a year, 100 times a year? I'm probably going to go to Disneyland this year probably 100 times. Am I in some way owed that? I mean, we sure did get used to that idea of going anytime, any when. Now, certainly I don't represent every Magic Key holder. I know that there's guests out there who don't go as often as I do, but I also know that there are a lot of Magic Key holders who do go, every week or so. So on that, Bob is right. There are a lot of annual pass holders who go to the park a lot. But the objection that I have with what he's trying to say is that it's the reservation system that is the solution. He's using annual pass holders and the Colorado family as a validation for the reservation system, as if that is the only way that they could answer that situation. But have they considered maybe just selling fewer tickets? And I don't even mean regular tickets. I just mean annual passes, actually, selling fewer annual passes. If you feel like annual passes are the problem, then sell fewer of them, which, by the way, is kind of exactly what happened. They started selling passes in August, and then they stopped selling them, Dream Keys, and they stopped selling them in October. So it didn't take long for them to realize there were too many, that they were selling too many. Makes me think that is kind of the direction they're going. The jury's still out, actually, on that topic. The jury's still out on whether or not they are satisfied with the number of guests in the parks and how they're spending money without having sold any annual passes. They haven't sold a single annual pass in months. It's been months. It's been since October that they've sold a Dream Key, and it's been since November since they've sold a Believe Key. That could be. Guys, they could be the direction that they're going. But going back to my point about the reservation system, that system is not about limiting attendance. It's about controlling when guests go to the park. If it were strictly about attendance, if it were strictly about limiting attendance, the reservation calendars would not be as wide open as they are right now. Almost every day is available. There are a few days where you can't go right now. If you look at the calendar, a couple of weekends for the Inspire Key, and there's actually a couple days where even single day tickets can't get in, which is really strange. I'm going to talk about that in a State of Disneyland video later, but there's just a couple days where you can't get where they're booked. But otherwise, the calendar is wide open. But of course, I'm speaking into the void. It doesn't matter. All these things that I'm saying, it doesn't matter. Disney's sticking with the reservation system. They have said it out loud, and their actions actually support that as well. They've got no incentive to anyway. That's another thing that Chapek has been very overt about. They cannot outpace demand. He has said demand still has exceeded. No matter all the things that they're doing that are creating negative attention towards the Disney company, all those things, despite of that, demand is still outpacing supply. And as long as that is the case, Disney's going to keep doing what they've been doing. They're going to double down on it. They may not raise the ticket prices. I don't think they want to. They don't want to use ticket prices as the only means of controlling attendance. They've said that out loud also. But instead of raising ticket prices, which is the most overt and obvious thing that guests can look at and say, oh my gosh, what are you doing? You're raising the prices. They're going to start selling us things that they didn't sell us before. They're creating revenue where they didn't before. So it's effectively the same thing. Genie Plus and Lightning Lane and a few other things. They're trying to monetize situations that weren't monetized previously. So in effect, they are raising ticket prices just in different ways. They are able to keep that illusion that ticket prices are staying low. Look for more things for them to charge for. Things like early entry, Magic Morning, look for that. Look for, maybe a surcharge on mobile order, $1 for the, because there's already, what was it, SeaWorld? They're charging you, we're just going to charge you an extra 5% for whatever reason. They could do that. They could charge a convenience fee for a mobile order. We're already doing that when we buy a movie ticket. You have to pay a convenience fee for that. Online, that is. Okay, soapbox there a little bit, but one last thing. I'm going to get back on the soapbox, actually. He made one more comment that, actually, this is the one that really got me. Per Chapek, what we will not bend on is giving somebody a less than stellar experience in the parks because we jammed too many people in there. I didn't hear anybody talk about this on social media, but for me, that is the most, that's the comment that really got me going a little bit. I don't know if Bob knows this or not. I don't know if he's talking to his people in the parks, but the experience that we're getting today is less than stellar. It's not as good as it was in the before times. And they continue to treat their cast poorly. They try to save money everywhere they can, hiring fewer cast, training them less, which, by the way, also reflects on the guest experience. If Disney truly believed this, if they truly believed that they would not bend towards giving guests anything less than a stellar experience, we wouldn't be hearing all the time, all the complaints that we see and that we do on social media. Attractions are not being maintained properly. Cast are overworked and underpaid, and there's too few of them. Cuts are being made all over the park. There is guest dissatisfaction. But I have to say, this is not entirely on Chapek. This is Chapek is a villain situation, because there is a whole president of Disney parks, experiences, and products. There's a whole person in charge of that stuff. Josh D'Amaro has been for a couple years now, and he's in charge of just about everything we talked about. Now, again, winding this conversation down a bit, I don't want to give the perception that this is an anti-Disney sentiment or anti-Disneyland. Disneyland is still a great value. I love Disneyland. I love the Disney company. I just want them to make good decisions that think of us first. That's all I'm saying. I just want to be thought of first as a guest. That's a thing that I feel like they're making more overt and more obvious, that it's more about ROI, it's more about return, it's more about profit margins than it is about whether or not we're happy in the parks. I just want them to think about that a little bit more. I wish they could. And with that, I guess we'll move on to the other interesting comments made, and this was in the Deadline interview where Chapek was asked about Disney+. In that interview, Chapek mentioned that they're finding out that the Disney Plus viewer and the Disney Parks guest are actually the same person. And with that understanding, their plan is to, over the next 3 or 4 years, make your viewing experience on Disney Plus more about guest engagement than just simply watching streaming Disney content. In other words, Disney Plus is going to inform Disney Parks, and the Disney Parks are going to inform Disney Plus. Per Chapek, what you watch on Disney Plus will have an impact on your guest experience in the park. And that's the line from this interview that had social media just going bonkers. It was hilarious how they were reacting to that statement. I especially loved Ivy Marie's comment on Twitter. Disney Plus will be conscious of what you do in the parks. What you watch on Disney Plus will impact your guest experience at the parks. That's Chapek's comment. She said, be right back. Going to watch the Country Bears 100 times straight to bring it back to Disneyland. First of all, I'm sure you have a large following who are going to be cheering you on in that effort, Ivy Marie. And I love it. I think it's great. But I have a feeling that his statement was not to be taken quite so literal. I know she's having fun with it, but I think it's more of a bigger picture thing. Obviously, he's not saying that, I could be home watching, a complete run-through of all the Marvel movies. That's a thing that we do. Watching a whole bunch of movies, then going to Disneyland parks and having Disney deliver more Marvel to me while I'm at Disneyland? But if it's not that, then what else could he mean? Certainly he's talking about a bigger picture. Certainly he's talking about things being viewed in the aggregate. If a whole lot of us are doing something very consistently, then we should expect to find that thing at Disney parks. Say if, for example, a certain Star Wars show featuring a Mandalorian is suddenly very popular with guests, we might see more Mandalorian in the parks. Which, by the way, that happened 2 years ago. The Mandalorian craze was 2 years ago. We're just now getting Mandalorian. But obviously, again, they have learned that lesson, and now they're trying, now they're making that effect happen at Disneyland. But again, I have to ask, is that it? Is he saying they're just going to get better at that? Because it seems like kind of a no-brainer. It seems like they shouldn't have to come to some sort of aha moment where like, oh my gosh, how did we let this go? I feel like that's a given. We were asking for this. We have been saying out loud, where's the Mandalorian? Per Chapek, if we can have a... Okay, guys, this is something. This is quite a statement. If we can have a universal guest experience, recognize that a person who spends 7 days in the park, 24 hours a day, and we know all that information about them is the exact same person who watches XYZ on Disney Plus, we can identify that person as the same one. What are you saying, Bob? What is a universal guest experience? That is, as it relates to Disneyland and Disney Plus. What does it mean? How do you bring those two things together? If we're not talking about the low-hanging fruit of saying, everybody's watching Mandalorian, we got to put Mandalorian in the park. Again, that's easy. That's a no-brainer. There's got to be something more. Because with that statement, he does seem to be saying it's an individual thing, not in the aggregate. A person who has been in the park for 7 days, not a group or a demographic, an individual. It's got me scratching my head a little bit because, like I said, it seems easy on the one hand, but also completely scientific, and I don't understand what he means if it's not just the simple stuff. He also said in that same comment something about a next-gen platform, that this type of concept is the next-gen platform, which I think is supposed to be something like the metaverse. Now, I don't know where I heard this. Somebody said they're not using the term metaverse. That was a thing that Bob Iger was big on before he left, and after he left, talking about Disney investing in the metaverse. I don't remember where I heard this, but somebody said they don't want to use the term metaverse. They're using next gen. And then he went on to mention that there's a certain Disneyland guest out there who can't get to the park, and maybe they would like a virtual ride-through of the Haunted Mansion. Which I have to ask, being a Disney vlogger, is this something that you want? Would you prefer? And I mean this honestly. I'm not trying to say this, like protecting my turf or anything like that, because I don't really do ride-throughs anymore anyway. But would you prefer, as a guest, would you prefer a virtual ride-through versus, let's say, a video on YouTube of an actual ride-through? I wonder if there is a market for that, and what would it look like? What would a virtual ride-through of Haunted Mansion look like? And by the way, I feel like this whole conversation, especially as it relates to Disney and their place in history as an innovator in the entertainment field, talking about things like, animatronics or just immersive entertainment in general, this sounds a lot like, an origin story for Westworld. If there was any company in this world that could do something like they do in Westworld, I mean, it's Disney, right? Disney would be the company that would create Westworld if somebody were to do it today. I mean, I kid, of course. It seems impossible, but Disney did use the code name Delos for the construction of Galaxy's Edge. I'm just saying. Love to hear your thoughts on this topic. I know it sounds like, to some of you, that I might be apologizing for Disney, at least with respect to Magic Keys. Certainly, I'm not only stating that. I have to admit, as somebody who is intimately involved with the Magic Key program, we've had it pretty good for a long while, and maybe it is time that we give back a little bit. But it doesn't excuse the Disney company from, treating us like assets, like yield to be managed. I'm not crazy about that idea. I'm not crazy about, them thinking of us or seeing us as simply a means to spend money. We are simply people who love Disney, who love Disneyland, and all we want is to be loved in return. And I don't feel like that's asking a lot. Follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked, on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. And if you like our show and want to show your support, please do consider joining us on our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/FreshBaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you. Be safe out there. That's why I say this, you guys, because I want you to know. That's why I say it. It may sound like routine, but I want you to know that I absolutely love you guys, and I care about this community. I care about all of you. We love you. Be safe. Be kind, and fresh baked.